Let's start with a number. $560 million. That is what the Indiana Fever are worth right now, according to Sportico's latest franchise valuation, the richest number in WNBA history. 2 years ago, that same franchise was valued at $90 million. That's a 522% jump in 24 months. And the reason for every single dollar of that increase is a 22-year-old point guard from Linwood, Iowa, who just went 1 for 7 from 3 in Los Angeles on Wednesday night. Now here's what makes that stat interesting. She didn't disappear. She made 8 of her 10 attempts inside the arc. She finished with 9 assists. The Fever won by 9. On paper, it looks like a solid night. But if you watched the tape, really watched it, you saw something that tells you everything about where this franchise is right now. You saw a generational talent spending 40 minutes improvising inside a system that was never designed for her. And the question isn't whether that's a problem. The question is who actually owns it. Because Fever fans have been loud, really loud. Open the comments on any video about this team and you'll find the same answer repeated thousands of times. Fire Stephanie White. New coach, new offense, new everything. It's clean, it's simple, and it completely misses the point. The coach didn't build this. The coach didn't hire the coach, and the coach isn't the one sitting in a front office that turned $90 million into $560 million, watching the same problems play out night after night and choosing to leave everything exactly as it is. That's a different conversation entirely, and it starts in Los Angeles. 6 of 7. That's the number that should be living in the front office's head right now. Caitlin Clark missed 6 of her 7 three-point attempts against the Los Angeles Sparks. 6 of 7. Before you call that a slump, watch the tape. A shooting slump is when a player gets clean looks and misses them. What happened in Los Angeles wasn't that. It was a player getting no rhythm, finding no space, and running offensive sets that weren't designed to give a perimeter scorer any kind of clean release. Every possession, she came off a screen with a defender already draped over her. Every time she tried to create separation, there was a second defender waiting at her hip before she even gathered herself. The Sparks didn't have some brilliant scheme for shutting her down. They just played the Fever's offense straight and let the structure do the work for them. So she drove the rim, 8 of 10 inside the arc, because that's what the offense gave her. Not as a strategic choice, not because she wanted to attack the paint all night, but because every time she came off a screen, the only available read was a drive. Pull up off a broken play, attack the switch before it closes, find something out of nothing and make it work. She did make it work. 9 assists, a win. But look at the cost. By the end of the second quarter, you could see it in her body. Her arms came back to the bench visibly marked from contact, red from being grabbed off the ball, off screens, anytime she came close to getting open. The technical foul at the halftime buzzer gets framed as a moment of frustration, a flash of emotion from a competitor, and yeah, that's part of it. But watch the sequence that led there. That wasn't a player losing her composure over a bad call. That was 2 quarters of doing somebody else's job finally reaching the surface. She wasn't yelling at the official about 1 missed call. She was reacting to 40 minutes of working twice as hard for half the looks that any legitimate offensive system would generate for a player of her caliber. Here's the thing that makes it worse. She's been here before. Not in Indiana, but she knows what it feels like when an offense actually works for her because she's lived it. And the contrast between that and what the Fever are running right now is not subtle. It's visible on every single possession. While Clark was improvising her way through 40 minutes in LA, here's what was happening around her. Kelsey Mitchell scored 23 points, which sounds fine until you realize how she got them. Contested fadeaways, pull-up jumpers off broken possessions, shots that an offense built for efficiency wouldn't generate. Mitchell is good, she's really good, but the shots she's taking are the product of a half-court system that creates contested looks by design, not by accident.
Then there's Aaliyah Boston. This offseason, Boston signed the largest total contract in WNBA history, $6.3 million over 4 years. That number matters because it reflects what the front office believes about her value to this team. And yet, in the fourth quarter against the Sparks, the quarter that decides games, she barely touched the ball. The most expensive player in WNBA history by total contract value was a ghost in the moments that mattered most. And then there's Clark herself. 9 assists sounds great in a box score. It sounds like a player running an offense, distributing the ball, creating for her teammates. But watch what actually happens on each of those 9 assists. She's not running through a system that finds her the ball in spots where she can make quick decisions. She's initiating, reading the defense, managing every possession from start to finish, and then finding the pass. She's not the play caller operating within a structure. She is the structure. Every possession lives and dies based on what she improvises. The point guard shouldn't be the offense. The point guard should run the offense. Those are 2 very different jobs, and right now, Clark is doing both. Carrying a franchise worth $560 million on her back while the system built around her makes that job harder than it has to be. That's the cap situation in a nutshell too. Mitchell, Boston, and Naomi Cunningham eat roughly 60% of Indiana's salary cap, Stephanie White's own number from her own media day. 60% of the cap on 3 players who don't have an offensive system that connects them. The bench has no real rotation answers. Clark is playing close to 40 minutes a night with no rest built in for a player whose value to the franchise is quite literally incalculable. This didn't happen overnight. This is the result of a series of roster construction decisions made by someone with authority over the franchise's basketball operations, and that person is not Stephanie White. Let's talk about the coaching change debate, because it's the loudest conversation in the Fever fan base right now, and it's worth taking seriously before explaining why it's pointed in the wrong direction. Fans who want Stephanie White fired aren't wrong to be frustrated. The offense is slow, the sets don't generate clean looks for the best player on the floor, the half-court execution against any team that applies real pressure looks shaky at best. Those are coaching-adjacent problems, and it's completely fair to look at the head coach when the on-court product isn't working. But here's what gets missed in that conversation. Stephanie White did not hire herself. She did not walk into Gainbridge Fieldhouse with a playbook tucked under her arm and unilateral authority over the franchise. She was hired by Kelly Krauskopf. Kroskov chose White in late 2024. Krauskopf signed off on the roster White is coaching. Krauskopf approved the cap structure that has Clark playing 40 minutes a night with no real bench rotation behind her. And Krauskopf has watched every game of this season, 5 games now, and chosen to leave all of it exactly as it is. Think about what that means structurally. You have a head coach running an offense that doesn't fit her best player. You have a general manager who built the roster that coach is working with, hired that coach to work with it, and continues to observe the results without intervening. If you fire the coach tomorrow, what changes? The roster doesn't change. The cap structure doesn't change. The fundamental question of how to design an offense around a player who needs pace, space, and decision-making freedom doesn't get answered. You just have a different face on the sideline running the same blueprint. That's the critical distinction. The coach is the foreman. The general manager is the architect. The blueprint didn't come from the sideline. You can replace the foreman as many times as you want. It doesn't fix a blueprint problem. It just buries the real issue under a new face and buys whoever designed the blueprint a little more time before the frustration refocuses. Firing White without holding the architect accountable isn't a solution, it's a distraction. Here's what makes the situation genuinely complicated and what separates it from a simple case of incompetent front office stumbling into the Clark era. Kelly Krauskopf is not new to this. She's not somebody who wandered into women's basketball from a background in something unrelated and got handed the keys to the most valuable franchise in the league's history. She built a championship team in this exact building. The 2012 WNBA title, Lynn Dunn coaching, Tamika Catchings on the floor, and Krauskopf running the basketball operations that assembled the pieces. That's not a small thing. Championship caliber roster construction in the WNBA is genuinely hard. The cap is tight, the talent pool is competitive, and the margin for error on roster decisions is smaller than most professional leagues. She got it right in 2012. She put together a team that won.
After that, she left Indianapolis, spent years working in the NBA, running basketball operations for the Pacers, a franchise that operates in the same building, serves the same city, and carries expectations that come with being an NBA organization. She wasn't hiding, she was building a resume that anyone in professional basketball would take seriously. Then she came back to Indianapolis in 2024, not because she had to, because the Fever needed a serious basketball mind for the Clark era, and she was available and interested, and arguably the most logical choice in the market for someone who understood both the franchise's history and the scope of what it was about to become. That context matters enormously, because when Fever fans ask why the franchise can't seem to build an offense around its generational player, why the sets don't fit, why the cap is structured the way it is, why the roster has the players it has and the roles it has, the answer coming back from someone with Krauskov's background isn't incompetence. She knows what a great point guard looks like inside a system designed for a great point guard. She's seen it, she's built around it before. Which means the answer has to be something else. And that something else is a choice, a deliberate, informed, defensible, or at least defended choice about how this team was going to be constructed around the most valuable player in the league's history. The choice might be wrong, it increasingly looks wrong, but it's not ignorance. That's actually what makes it harder to accept. There's no mystery here, no advanced analytics required, no deep tactical dive into motion offense versus pick-and-roll concepts. You just have to look at what has actually worked for Caitlin Clark every single time she's been given the right environment. Start at Iowa. Her senior season, she averaged 32 points per game and shattered the NCAA's all-time scoring record, men's or women's. Didn't matter, she passed them all. She didn't do that running off pinned-down screens waiting for a catch-and-shoot look. She did it with the ball in her hands. Pace, push the break whenever possible, pull from 28 feet, from the logo, from the half-court line, wherever the look opened, the instant a defender gave her an inch. Drop the pocket pass when the help defender collapsed. Attack the closeout when the defender bid on the shot fake. She was the decision-maker from the moment the ball crossed half-court. Every read, every adjustment, every shot decision, hers. USA Basketball showed the same thing. Put her in a system with pace and freedom, and she finds a way to be dangerous in every single game. The reads are faster because the system puts her in spots where her instincts can operate at full speed, rather than fighting against a structure that asks her to be something she isn't. The Dallas opener this season offered a three-quarter look at it. For 3 quarters, Indiana got it closer to right. Clark in transition, Clark initiating, Clark making decisions ahead of the defense. She was a problem. Before the legs went out and the rotations broke down in the 4th quarter, this was a different team than the one that went to Los Angeles. So the blueprint exists. It's not theoretical. It's been executed at the college level in a record-breaking way, at the international level against elite competition, and in glimpses this season in the moments where Indiana's offense has actually resembled something coherent. The system that works for her has the ball in her hands and lets her make the decision, read and react from above the arc, pull from distance when the defender gives ground, find the roll man when the help comes, attack the closeout, repeat. That is not the offense Indiana is running. Every Fever fan watching can tell you that. Every analyst who's watched the tape can tell you that. And the person who built this roster and hired this coach can certainly tell you that. The question isn't whether the right system is knowable. The question is why the franchise isn't running it. Here's where the window conversation becomes urgent, because the Fever problems aren't staying in place while the front office figures things out. They're compounding. Wednesday night against the Sparks, Indiana barely held on. The Sparks were supposed to be the easiest opponent on the early season schedule. Kelsey Plum nearly completed a comeback in the 4th quarter. A comfortable double-digit lead almost evaporated because Indiana couldn't run a clean half-court possession when Los Angeles started applying pressure. That is the floor. That is what happens against the worst-case opponent on the schedule when everything breaks down. Now project that forward. The Sparks are not the New York Liberty, they're not the Las Vegas Aces, or whatever the best version of the team Sandy Brondell is building in Toronto ultimately looks like. Those franchises have championship-caliber rosters, coaches who've seen everything, and defensive schemes specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses of opponents they've scouted thoroughly.
Wait until a championship-tier defense runs a trap scheme against Indiana, one designed specifically for the spots on the floor where the Fever can't create. Wait until somebody traps Clark off the catch and dares the rest of the roster to make plays without her initiating everything. The Sparks didn't need to scheme for that. Better teams will. And when they do, the structural cracks that showed up in the fourth quarter in Los Angeles won't close on their own. They'll widen. There's also a timeline problem that lives underneath everything else. The Clark, Cunningham, Mitchell trio, the core of this roster, is operating on borrowed time under the WNBA's new collective bargaining agreement and its $7 million salary cap structure. These aren't players you can keep together indefinitely. The cap math gets harder every year. The window to build a championship team around this version of Clark isn't infinite, and every game that passes without a structural fix to the offense is a game subtracted from a window that's already counting down. Odyssey Sims, the guard Indiana cut before the season, scored 20 for the Dallas Wings in the building Indiana lost in. Sandy Brondello is building the roster Indiana should be building. The bench has no real rotation answers for a player who is physically carrying the franchise possession by possession through 40-minute nights. The margin for error is not growing, it's shrinking, and the person with the authority to change that has a homestand tonight and Sunday to show that she understands what's at stake. Tonight at 6:30 Eastern, the Washington Mystics tip off against the Indiana Fever at Gainsbridge Fieldhouse. It's the home opener. The Storm come to town on Sunday at 5. 2 games in 48 hours, 5 games into what was supposed to be the franchise's defining season. These 2 games are not just 2 games. Kelly Krauskopf has tonight. She has Saturday, she has Sunday morning. She has every minute of this homestand to acknowledge what every single Fever fan with eyes has been screaming since the preseason. She can make a move. She can create internal accountability. She can signal, even privately, even without a press conference, that the structure is going to change, that the offense is going to evolve, that the player driving this franchise's value is going to get an offensive system that reflects what she's actually capable of. Or she can do nothing. Let the homestand play out, watch Clark improvise her way through 2 more games against opponents that will study the Wednesday tape and know exactly which side of the floor Indiana can't create from, and emerge Sunday night with the same roster, the same offensive concepts, and the same structural problems that have been visible since Game 1. Doing nothing is also a choice, and it carries its own cost, not just in wins and losses, but in the relationship between the franchise and its most important asset. Clark is a competitor. She showed you that at the halftime buzzer in Los Angeles. She's not going to stop competing because the offense doesn't fit. She'll improvise through 40-minute nights indefinitely if that's what's asked of her. But there is a limit to how long a generational talent can exist inside a system that treats her as the solution to every problem, rather than the centerpiece of a system built around her skills. That limit gets closer every game. The Mystics are not a great team. The Storm are better, but have their own questions. If there was ever a moment to make adjustments and see what this offense could look like, with more deliberate design around Clark's strengths, it's right now, against opponents who won't necessarily punish you for the transition. The window for that is tonight. It might also be the last easy window for a while. So let's bring it back to the number, $560 million. That is what the Indiana Fever are worth, because one player chose Indiana, because she signed, showed up, and immediately turned a franchise that was worth $90 million into the most valuable team in the league's history. The building sells out because of her. The national broadcasts pick this team up because of her. The sponsorships, the jersey sales, the merchandise, the cultural moment that women's basketball is experiencing right now, every single piece of it traces back to that one decision she made. And 5 games into the season that was supposed to define the Clark era in Indiana, she's a 1-for-7 3-point shooter who took a technical foul yelling at the officials because she couldn't get one clean look in 2 quarters of basketball. She drove the rim 40 times because the offense left her no other option. She carried 9 assists because she was running the entire operation alone. She played 40 minutes without rest because there's no bench rotation capable of giving her a break. None of that is on Stephanie White. The coach runs the system that was built for her. The coach works with the players she was given. The coach operates within the cap structure that was set before she arrived. The architect drew the blueprint. The architect hired the foreman. The architect is sitting in the front office with $560 million worth of franchise equity to get this right, and so far has watched the same structural failure repeat itself game after game without making a visible move to address it. Fever fans have been asking the right question. They've just been directing it at the wrong person. The question isn't whether Stephanie White should stay. The question is whether Kelly Krauskopf, the woman who built a championship roster in this building before, who spent years running NBA basketball operations, who came back to Indianapolis specifically because this moment was worth coming back for, is going to design an offense for the players she drafted. Because if she does, this team is a genuine contender. The pieces are there. The player is there. The fan base is there. The valuation is there. Everything that needs to be true for a championship run is already in place except the system that connects it all. And if she doesn't, the window doesn't stay open forever. The cap gets harder. The opponents get better. The frustration builds. And $560 million worth of franchise equity starts to look like a number that was built on potential that never quite became what everyone could see it should have been. The Mystics tip at 6:30. The Storm on Sunday at 5. Kelly Krauskopf has the homestand. Let's see what she does with it.